In the 5 years coming up to this, I'd only managed to put two of them together, and there wasn't a lot of progress between them. Whereas now we're on what, our fifth one. Even when I go back and watch it, I can see myself, oh wow, this is a big leap forward. Wow, we're a long way from where we started. There's a workflow. There's a way to make this manageable, even though the pace is highly accelerated compared to what I did on my own, but it doesn't feel highly accelerated, right? At the same time, but you look at the amount of work I'm able to do in the last 4 months, I was like, well, damn, like that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff, and still did it with busy schedule, 2 year old, teenager, job, all these other things going on, right? So life is already pretty full, and still able to do all of these without feeling it being overwhelmed. My name is Richard Weeks. I'm out of Houston, Texas. I've been in Houston for, I guess, going on 20 years. I actually work in technology, sort of the opposite realm of film and television and creative media. I did not attend film school. My formal education at uni is in maths and computer science, language theory, compiler design. Currently work on machine learning, AI, fraud, digital payments. So when I say techno weenie, I'm I'm off the deep end techno weenie. So before, looking into getting some education on film and how I could do this, there were no more TV shows for me. And I realized that as a 50-year-old, the entertainment industry is not geared towards you anyway, right? And especially in film and whatnot. And so I knew I had already moved out of the window, and some television shows that I really enjoyed hadn't been around in many years. And I thought, well, wonder what it could take to do that. Like I've got some ideas, and not knowing anything about the process, it seemed like overload, right? At first, it seemed like, oh, this should be pretty simple. You come up with a script, and you're going to put these shots together, and then you're going to edit this whole thing together, and voila, through the magic of the mixing, this thing of genius will pop out, right? It was sorely, I guess, right? And in some sense, yes, those are the ingredients, but knowing how to even get started on some things was just, it was almost overload. Like it just seemed this insurmountable thing, especially as somebody who's, a one person trying to go do this. I didn't know enough about any of this. And so it felt so overwhelming, right? And as I would get started on maybe an idea, my brain was already in the step 12 of whatever process I would think I was trying to do, and it just became almost paralyzing, right? This analysis of paralysis and do all these things. And so, like a lot of folks, I started just watching YouTube stuff, and I learned how to do editing, the basics, the mechanics of it. But that still didn't tell me how to tell a story, right? Or how to put those things together. And that's what I struggled with, was just how do I take this concept that's in my head, and what's the step by step simple process to get something out that I can then refine and learn on top of that. And that's where I just got hung up. It's like I didn't know what step one was. Like, just what do you got to do to get going, right? And some stuff I would make, just it was like, okay, the basics are there, but it just, that was the other part, was even lacking the language skills to describe what the problem I was seeing was, right? And saying, I'm looking at something, but I don't even know the words or the vocabulary to describe to why I don't like this, other than ick, right? And that's not very helpful. And so it's like I needed that language or that vocabulary to say, yeah, this is why you probably feel this way. It's repetitive because you've already seen something like it, and it didn't move it this way, or it drug too long. And so not just having any of those foundations made it difficult, kind of like being a tourist somewhere and you don't speak the language. You just kind of to look around, you don't know what to do. So looking at how I was going to learn this, because again, and maybe just because I'm Gen X, an older generation, and in my time at uni was different than it is today in formal education. But I was an academic, right? And I'd learned through study and rigor, right? And that's kind of what I got used to, right? Is if I could get information that was well structured, I could learn it, and then I could broadly apply it, right? If I have any skill set in life, that's it. And so then it became, okay, well, there's got to be a way to learn to do short films or to do storytelling without going back to a physical film school because that's just not a possibility. And, I'd run into your channel years ago. I've been watching you for a long, long time. I was sort of circling back around because you always gave like very practical advice. And I'd watched all your short films. And then I saw again, it came up the Will Smith video where you got the little Will Smith doll and you basically play tic tac toe, right? And you create this short story. I was like, okay, I can do that. I like if I just did what he said, I can do that, right? And then I went and I shot my little short film, Lost, where I lost my wallet, following those same things. It's a very simple story. You got to do it by yourself. So you got to do these things. And it was bite size, right? Which also stuck in my brain when you would talk about like the Mentos commercials. As cheesy as they were, they had a problem, an action that was taken, and the resolution of that action, right? Whatever it was in a 30-second spot. And I was like, yeah. And so that was insight. And so that's what I was honestly was looking for. I was like, well, how do you find a school that can teach you that? And I looked up like a whole bunch of online film schools and nothing really sunk in. And then the day you posted the video about GTS, I was like, oh, I hadn't seen Dara's video in a while. It popped up on the feed. And before I even got through the video, I was like, this is the guy. Like, I've seen enough of your work. I've listened to you. I love the animations and the effort you put into your videos. I love the way you break down the stories. I love the fact that you tell me that you're watching the wrong time of the type of movies. If you want to make short films, you need to go study this thing, not that thing. Practical, pragmatic advice. That's what I was like, if he's gonna do a course about that, that's what I need to know. I need to know we're gonna do these very structured, very basic step-by-step things, and then you'll learn from that. And I was like, that's what I want to know. Signed up right away. Like as soon as I didn't even get through your video. I was like, pulled it up, boom, 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 done. Let's go. Get scheduled now. Right. Like I knew just from the years of following you and listening to the things you would say, I was like, this guy knows like how to help me get moving forward. So when I signed up, I thought to myself, and it was nothing really so much about the course that I was concerned about, right? I knew I had a feeling you would deliver on the goods. My concerns were I'm a 50-year-old computer science math guy with no film school or art education or nothing. I'm the guy that had to take turbo English over the summer in college to get through the English side of things. They gave me a foreign language credit because I was fluent in 35 programming languages and compiler theory. So I didn't even have to take foreign language. Like I'm the nerdiest of the nerd. And now I'm going to drop into a group that's more creative, more expressive, probably, work in the industry to some capacity. And here I am, the sore thumb, right? And it's like, am I going to be able to do something where I'm going to get at least a feel bad, where I'm not going to feel like I don't belong, right? I think that was my biggest fear is I wouldn't belong and I would be this mushroom off to the side, this outsider, and not be able to participate or not get the full advantage of it. So I think some of those were just internal fears. I didn't even know what to do, like what to expect, but I was like, I'm just going to do it and absorb whatever I get and take whatever beating I get, and it'll be all right. I'll learn. It was kind of my fear to go into it. Coming into this, I didn't know sort of the steps to take for something. And I think, by you sort of breaking it down into especially the way, so even more so than the fundamental steps, which I think you could, I've probably seen before, you have an idea and you define a character in a story world, but those steps were kind of vague, right? They weren't well boxed. And I think what you've been able to do is create a systematic approach that's more tangible and tactile in its approach for each step that we went through. And by having sort of each film have a goal or a set of goals that which makes you really think about what shots are important, what is it I'm trying to say, right? And so learning through constraints forced me to go, okay, well, what's important? I've got all these shots, but which ones matter? Then when we go to review it, having a process by which you're going to review it, I think is the most important part of that cycle, right? Of here's the steps to accomplish something. Here's the steps that we use when we review this. And so it's, did you meet this objective? Did you meet this objective? Okay, now let's talk about the shots and where they go, right? And I relate back to the first one we did, having that step by step to say, okay, this shot and this shot, they're repetitive, they're the same beat. This shot where you're leaving riding away is the important shot. That is the climax, not this other shot. And it's like, oh, okay. And so by having that same rigor in the review and and the critique, it gives you that complete framework. So here's a framework for me to get my idea out. And so now as I start to appraise my own work when I'm looking at the dailies from it, that I'm when I'm shooting something, I'm like, okay, this objective was met, this objective was met, this objective was not met because here's why. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before, where I didn't even have the language to describe that. Now I do, to say, okay, his goal was to do this. Well, we already did that. This piece here is extraneous, or it's a repetitive beat, or this is shoe leather, right? And to understand those terms in a way that you can go through and refine the cut so that it comes out and it's more specific. So it's not just the system of me, the student, to produce something. It's also that system that's in place for the review up, to say, here's how we're going to review it. Here's how we evaluate it. And here's now I can take that actionable feedback, right, and recut something, right? To say, let me just recut it and see what that looks like. So, oh yeah, that does play better. Oh, I see that now. And so I get that reinforcement learning, as it were, right? And that's the system that didn't exist before now. For me, I didn't have that system, just wasn't there. There was no system to build something, and there was no system to review something. And I think those two pieces together is what really, starts to bring things, in my mind at least, to make sense, right? And it's like, okay, now I see how these pieces work together. So before joining, I did try my hand at a couple of really small shorts. I did one many years back when my oldest was little, of us playing Connect Four, and it's kind of like the game night, almost like the 30-second commercial for Connect Four. For what it was, it came out okay. And then I just kept racking up ideas, but I just had no idea how to execute them. And then right before joining, again, like I said, your video had popped up, and the Will Smith one, and I was like, okay, I can go do this. Not great, but it wasn't too bad. In the 5 years coming up to this, I'd only managed to put two of them together, and there wasn't a lot of progress between them. Whereas now we're on what, our fifth one, and even when I go back and watch it, right, I can see myself, oh wow, this is a big leap forward. It's still got other big leaps to go, but wow, we're a long way from where we started. It's like, okay, so I'm able to see that progress because again, they're more bite-sized, they're time constrained, they're goal oriented, they're actionable, right? And not only do I get your feedback, but I think the peer group I'm in has been, just a fantastic part of this whole process, right? I was really surprised at the insight that they had into the films. And it got to the point where I would post and I was like, I think these two shots don't work well. And before we even reviewed it, the peeps in the chats were like, yeah, probably this shot or that. I'm like, so I'm starting to get it. Like, so I you start to feel that sense of community. It's like, yep, I knew that. Okay. And so it helps give you that sort of that, again, that reinforcement and that validation and just knocking them out. And not only am I knocking them out, I think at times, because we have so many people working on the same short films and presenting, you're constantly seeing, right? And so you're learning through their example as well. So it feels like, even though we've only done, a handful of them, it feels like we've done so many more because of that effect of everybody. It's like, yep, 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 yep. And that interactivity, the learning is more, is exponential at that point, because I'm not just learning from what I put together, but I'm also watching theirs and learning from that in real time. Right. If that makes sense. Like, so you get this added bonus of learning from everybody else as well. Since November, right? And with holidays, that was the other part, right? So even with holidays of Thanksgiving and Christmas and family and all that stuff, how many films have we shot in the last 4 months? So has it been five? Have we done five or four? I think I've done at least one a month since we've started. Where the last one I just did was the one that, was 3 weeks. We had 3 weeks to go do that one. And it took all of 3 weeks to get the research and to really plan it out. So I think we've done one short film a month once you get going. Or no, more than that, because we also did some of the exercises around ADR for dialogue replacement, image recreation. And so in the last 4 months, right? So if you take all that together, I mean, that's more than I've done in the last several years, right? All condensed into 4 months, just boom, 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 between shot recreations, lighting recreations, sound, and then all of the shorts we've done. So the pace of knocking these things out, I don't think the pace is good. What helps is I didn't have to think as much. if that makes sense. I could focus on here's the assignment. And so it was more of thinking, okay, if I've got to if I need to go find, these three images and then recreate them, that's a very actionable goal. And it's not this overwhelming thing of, oh, let me go find shots that I like. And you kind of get off into the weeds, right? Whereas when it's sort of laid out for you, that pace, you're able to go through it and focus on it. And I'm a deadline kind of person anyway, and I live by a calendar. And so having that structure made it simpler for me to get going until I get to the point where now I can formulate my own idea, my own concept, and my own execution. Whereas before I needed very, tangible, specific, actionable things. Go recreate these shots. Okay, let me go do that. Let me go try to do that. Right. And they were things you could knock out in just a couple hours, right? I think like some of the shot recreations I did while my 2-year-old was sleeping. At nap time in the afternoon, put him down, go set some things up, boom, 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 boom. So it wasn't even like this, because I think, for me, I would always tell myself, oh, I'm busy or I can't do this or I can't do that. When the reality is a lot of these you can do in these bite-sized manageable chunks. Since I'm not stressing over the process, I'm just focusing on the results and what to go do. I could slice up the work, if that makes sense. I could do the shots, and then after bedtime when everybody's asleep, then I could do the edits, and then I could do this. And so learning how to create the little buckets of do this and then do this and then do this, and you realize you don't have to do them all at once. And that was always I think my big challenge is everything seemed to condense on itself and you got to do everything all at once, and it was just too much. Whereas with this and this approach, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then a little bit later I'll do the second step, and then a little bit later I'll do the third step. It's like, oh, okay, there's a workflow, there's a way to make this manageable, even though the pace is highly accelerated compared to what I did on my own, but it doesn't feel highly accelerated, right? At the same time, but you look at the amount of work I'm able to do in the last 4 months, I was like, well, damn, like that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff, and still did it with busy schedule, 2-year-old, teenager, job, all these other things going on, right? So life is already pretty full, and still able to do all of these without feeling it being overwhelmed. My biggest fear when I came in was that my peers would be so far ahead of me with their background and their experience that it would not really match up, which can make it difficult to see how I'm progressing because the bar is up here. And even if you're progressing and you're not closing that gap. And so it makes it difficult. And that was a big fear. And then getting in and seeing that, while yeah, they've got some experience in different realms, they were here for the same reason I was, which was to progress. As I was doing some things and I could see, okay, I did this thing, I think a little better, hearing it from your peers and getting positive critique as well as the constructive critique, it makes it easier. It's like, okay, yeah, I did move and I can see where I got better. And then watching my peers in the same sense, we'd go through and you'd see their film and they would get that feedback about this type of shot or this or, this pacing. And then you would see that they applied that learning in the next one. Also reinforces it's like, yeah, I remember, because if they would have done it like they did last time, there would still be this gap or it wouldn't have worked. And you can see how that change was applied there. And so seeing them progress in the same way, it's like, okay, it's like this reinforcement again that these concepts and ideas work across all styles of how you film it. Because we do have, within the group, people that have very, very different styles, even with all their influences, but from Mr. Robot to, when they all come together and when they start applying the same feedback and concept, you can see how their shots elevate, how their story elevates. And it's like, oh yeah, I can see that improvement. I can see that improvement there. Again, it reinforces that it's like, if you do this, you get this. Small peaks, or was it small tweaks, big peaks, right? Small tweaks, big peaks. And I think that is what I see the most when we go through these reviews. It's like, and I know with the folks that have just come in and the feedback they got, I'm excited to see what they do next, because I know that they're going to take a couple of small tweaks and you're going to see this big jump in a section of it. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that works out better. They've applied and you can see it. And then it again reinforces to myself, pay attention to this framing, which is still something I, get sloppy at sometimes. I get a little rushed. It's like, yep, that framing. And I know when I see it, it's like, yeah, it's crowded. Move that over, right? Or get rid of this. And so seeing that and seeing your peers also do the same thing, again, it reinforces that learning, right? Do this, get that, do this, get that, do this, get that. It's like, okay, now I see what they're saying. That's why I was so excited with the young girl's film last night, because it's like all of us were, I don't know, not all in a box, but she comes in like we're going after the feet, we're going crazy. I'm like, oh my god, there's totally different energy. I'm like, I needed to see that to remind us like everything's not got to be, this stylized box, type of thing. There are places to go, right? There are other, and it was just refreshing to see kind of break the mold of what we've been kind of looking at lately. Having that in the group dynamic just helps, right? Because then you can see all these, different perspectives from people, because we get trapped in our own little bubbles, our own little world sometime. And so, getting that fresh injection, you're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. Again, so with my background, the concept of, how things are put together, how this piece affects this piece, right? And the relationships between those, and having that process. And once I break something down into those little blocks, then I'm able to rearrange the blocks because I know what the little blocks do. And I think coming into this, like, I didn't even know what the blocks were. You had these sort of amorphous blobs. Putting the process and making it simple, this block does this. Okay, I see. Now if I move this block, it moves these things. Okay, now I see. And so having those very simple, it's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Instead of going off and saying, yeah, there are people that just vomit out excellence. We get that, right? They just have this story and they breathe life into it, and they've got witty dialogue and amazing cinematography, and they've just, but that's not really the process for most films that get made. And I think demystifying that, peeling back the curtain to say there is a process. And since I've actually been in the course, I've actually found, or maybe noticed or paid attention to, more than likely. It's like when you see a Volkswagen Beetle, then all of a sudden you'll see them everywhere, or you see this, right? You see it everywhere. And I think by you simplifying the process and talking about the things now, when I'm, on YouTube looking at things, and I find those channels like Studio Binder channel now makes more sense. Wandering DP now makes more sense to me. I think you've given the steps, the treatment that I needed to understand some of these other things and be able to say, oh, okay, this is what they're talking about. This is what they're breaking down. This is what this step is. And to know that there is a mechanism by which follow these steps, you can produce this result. To that effect, it's, we're creating short films, not features. That, and having the reference films to go by, made it so much easier, because now I can say, okay, this is what Darius was talking about. If I watch these reference examples, I can see what he's talking about. Now, how do I go to apply that for the steps he's given me for this to go do the same? And it's like, boom, okay. And I think some of the shorts I've made are comparable with some of the references I've watched. I'm like, okay, it's not as polished, not as clean, but it's in the right direction. Whereas before, it's off over here, right? So just getting in the right direction is huge. And so I think that to me, being a step by step, here's, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. Okay, now I got it. Now that makes sense. So that is so when we were talking about what was expected in the course during the sign up, right? And you said, we're gonna get to shooting. Day one, you're going to be doing stuff. You're going to have deliverables. You're going to, like, boom, boom, boom. That to me was the most appealing part. My entire learning process has been hands on for what I do. Right? You don't learn the things I've learned and do the stuff I do from theory only. There's a very practical side that's required, and having that same here, I don't think I could do this any other way. In fact, I know I couldn't learn it any other way, because I tried just watching a whole bunch of stuff, but none of that sunk in because I wasn't doing the thing. And I wasn't doing the thing because I didn't have the bridge between what they were saying and what I needed to do to push the button. Some people intuitively get that. Cool. I didn't. I was missing that vital piece. And so having this course structured to where it's like, we're going to go build this, we're going to go do that, we're going to go do this, you're going to deliver this, da 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 da. It's like, okay, cool. Well, if I have to deliver stuff, that means he's going to tell me the steps I need to do to go do that thing. And then that's what we would get. Right. And so as you go through the materials, and I would watch, I've got all the Milanote pages, I've got all the assets, I got everything, pulled it all down. It's like, oh, okay, do this, do that, do this. Boom. Okay. Boom. Now that makes sense. And the first step's always a doozy. Having something that's actionable helps with that first step. So even if that first step is uncomfortable, that's fine. But at least I know what the step is. And as I continue to make those steps, then they get easier. So for this next short that I'm doing, I've already got my research photos. I've already done location scout. I've already thought about, what the tone needs to be, what the interesting action is. So all of these things in the pre-production before you hit the button, I know how to do them. Whereas I didn't know how to do those before. Now there's a system to go do that. I didn't know how to go get locations, right? I mean, I knew some free spots maybe I could shoot, but I didn't beyond that, I didn't know what to do. But now I do. And so that's been huge to just have pragmatic tools, pragmatic steps to produce an outcome. That goes into the feedback cycle. Everybody gets to look at it, poke a hole here, polish it there, pump up, do this, do that. And you go, oh, okay. Take that all the way back into the process and run it through again. And it'll come out better the next time. And just rinse and repeat. And that's been huge, huge. And I say this all the time. The steps, the process, the peer group, the critical, actionable feedback that we get from following it is worth the price of admission all day, every day, twice on Sundays, as someone I know likes to say. That is huge. Game changer, huge. The steps and the work you gave us, it's like all of a sudden, all these sources of information I looked at that weren't really resonating with me, all of a sudden, it's like you've given me the decoder ring. And now I can understand more about what they were saying. It's like I've got that bridge language necessary to go, oh, that's what they were talking about. I see what they're saying, right? And if I plug it in to the steps, I can go do something like that, right? It's like, okay, now I'm starting to see it. And the foundational step that's needed, I think, was always the piece that was missing. And I think this course, above all else, provides that here is the actual step one. Start here, instead of dropping you off in the middle of the maze, we're going to put you here with the map and show you this is where you start. And now we're going to show you how you get through there. Right. And that part has been just huge. Right. Yeah. So if you're considering signing up, I think the real question is, what have you gotten without it? And if you're not making progress and you're spending money on gear, or you're spending money on mini courses, or you're spending money, on other things that aren't moving you forward with what you want to do, that's the part to really go look at. And I think, and all that went through my head before I even pushed the button. I already knew kind of ballpark what it would cost. But if I look back at all the money I kind of wasted on things that didn't move me forward, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, when you added all that up, and the time for years, and didn't make any progress, I was like, I need to make progress. Like, I've got this stuff in my head. I want to get it out. There's some things I really want to do that's worth the time and the investment for me. What have you already spent time and money wise? And did that get you what you wanted? And if the answer is no, this is the way to do it. It's straight to the core. You're going to get to work. You're going to get an amazing peer group, an amazing community that is interactive, right? It's not a dead community. Like, they're there. You're going to get everything you need to get going. The only excuse you would have is you. That's it. Everything is laid out. Follow the steps, do the work, get the results, take the feedback, and move forward. And if you look at it from that perspective, the cost is really not that much, right? I mean, if I factored in what I spent over 10 years of not progressing versus, the 4-5 months we've been doing this, it's night and day. Like, it's night and day. I'm way farther forward towards making the things I want to be able to make than I was for the past 10 years of looking at this stuff. Like, there's no argument to be made there. So, if you really are serious about, learning the practical steps to get it done, how to go execute it, to get the feedback you need to move forward, then to me, this is kind of a no-brainer.